Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. We come to you in the late evening on the Mike Francesa channel, on the Bet Rivers Network, on YouTube, after Game 3 of the NLCS. And there is nothing worse than a big New York sports night. And New York sports nights have a feel because there's an energy and an anticipation that just fills up a building from the moment that you get the first customer into the parking lot or into the building. And I could tell you so many times, being in the position I was in those buildings before anybody else. I would be in the garden at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I would be in Yankee Stadium or any of the ballparks at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when people were just cleaning the seats and the security is checking for the things they have to check and going through the regular process of getting any building ready for a big event. And you watch it slowly fill up. And when you have an anticipatory night like this one, where there is so much energy and so much goodwill and so much anticipation that goes in, and you can feel it right from the start. And when the air comes out of those buildings, when you get a one-sided defeat, it's tangible. When the Mets got behind, you could feel it. When Kiki hit his home run, you really could feel it. When Ohtani hit his upper deck blast, he chased everybody out of the building. It was over. And obviously, there's no bigger disappointment than those kind of nights, but you have to understand. The team does. The fans don't, but you have to understand that when you play in this kind of series, it's always about responding to the next game. The thing you must do in an intense best of 7 is not lose 2 games in a row. That's the critical thing that you have to stay away from. You must answer every time. The Dodgers win 9-0. The Mets come back, strike early, and win comfortably 7-3. The Dodgers turn around again, and this is a team that I told you is a bully team. They want to take your heart. They want to make you feel like you've been hit by a train so that you aren't ready for the next night's game. But that's the thing that the Mets have been, and that this team has had a very special amount of, and that is an incredible amount of resiliency. That it has bounced back from whatever it's been dealt. And it did that again in Game 2, and it's going to have to do it, let's be honest, the next 2 games. It's going to have the pitches on the mound that it wants. It wants to have Quintana on the mound tomorrow. It's going to want to go with the matchups the next 2 days. That's going to be what's going to happen. And let's be honest. If you're looking at this realistically, if you're looking at it objectively, the Mets are going to win the next 2 games in this series, or they're probably not going to win the series. The odds on going back to LA down 3-2 and beating them 2 games in Los Angeles is going to be, I think, pretty remote. The Mets are not in any way out of the series. They're down a game. But I really believe, and you can't look at it in terms of 2 games, but if you're participating, it's next inning, next at bat. Have a good first inning. But the bottom line is the Mets are going to have to respond, and they're going to have to leave New York with a 3-2 lead, I think, to realistically win this series. These teams are different. Their talent is dispersed differently. But they're both fairly equal teams in totality. Now, the Mets are not getting right now the contributions that they've gotten so often this year. Not everybody in this lineup is live. They're not getting it top to bottom like they have so often this year, where they've had so many people contribute. Yeah, obviously we know what Lindor has done, and we know the big home runs that Alonso hit. And obviously Vientos has been a power source and really their best offensive player. We know that. But they have gotten it from so many different places throughout this magical run. From Iglesias, from Taylor, from the bench, from Bader, from Winker, from Martinez, from this one, from that one, from every person that has contributed. But right now, you got some guys who are not carrying their end of it. Alvarez looks particularly bad at the plate. Listen, everyone knows steady diet of curveballs. And he's going to have to fight that. I mean, that's just the way it is. And he's looked, I mean, he's not only guessing up there, he's guessing wrong. He's taking, fastballs right down the middle. He's mixed up right now. Their defense has been in and out. Tonight, let's be honest, they made a couple of sensational plays. Taylor made a play that saved them at least one run, maybe two. Lindor made an incredible play at shortstop. But they've been erratic defensively. And here's the thing. All year, the Mets' Achilles heel has obviously been the vulnerability in their bullpen. But the other Achilles heel has been that they have been vulnerable to yielding enormous numbers of walks all year. They've been at the top. They were always battling the White Sox, who weren't even a Major League team, all year for who had the most walks allowed in Major League Baseball. So in real terms, they led Major League Baseball because we're not even counting the White Sox. Whether the White Sox finish with more or not doesn't matter. Mets have walked 22 batters in 3 games. The Dodgers wait for walks and home runs. Walks and home runs get you beat. Walks and home runs are the baseball equivalent of dynamite. They just blow you right out of the game. And that is what has happened. The Mets can't keep the Dodgers off the base paths with walks, and they can't keep the Dodgers in the ballpark. And the Dodgers have power top to bottom. When you got a guy batting at the bottom of the order who has 15 postseason home runs, I mean, what are we talking about? It makes me think of sometimes Scott Brocious. Now, Scott Brocious didn't hit 15 postseason home runs, but you know that Scott Brocious would be very quiet during the regular season, although one year he did actually have almost 100 RBIs, batting ninth on the one of the great Yankee teams. But he could be just a killer at the bottom of the lineup. I mean, you can't let Kike Hernandez wreck you. It's bad enough if Ohtani does. It's bad enough if Betts or Freddie Freeman does. Or Teoscar gets you. But if Kike gets you, it hurts. And Muncy is a huge home run threat. He's always been. See, they have so many guys that can beat you with the long ball. And then, of course, after looking bad at the plate a lot, Ohtani was going to have a moment. I don't get what's going on here, how he can look so feeble with nobody on bases and then, on the base paths, and then as soon as somebody's on the base paths, he looks like a different hitter. It's a weird little thing going on, but when he hits it, it's going to go out of the ballpark. Same thing for Muncy. Same thing for Teoscar. Same thing for Kiki. And Freddie Freeman is Freddie Freeman. And let's be honest, he made a couple plays at first base tonight that were just beautiful. He's playing on one leg. Nimmo is too. Freddie Freeman's even worse. And he probably needs surgery. I mean, he is hurting. He can't even get up and down the stairs, but he's playing. And I'm sure he's doing whatever he has to do in terms of keeping that ankle immobilized and doing whatever, getting in whatever little help he can get along the way and still play with it. But he's playing. And his glove and his bat are still lethal. They are a very dangerous team. They're an odd team, the way they're built right now. But they have a lot of power. They have a lot of power arms. But they're not in any way unbeatable. But they have flexed their muscles here. And twice in this series, 9-0, 8-0. You don't get scores like this in the postseason. You know, shutouts like that and one-sided shutouts. So the Mets are in the same position they were in Game 2. They have to answer, and they have to answer quickly. And they need to get a well-pitched game from a guy who has been red hot. And they need to jump out and take a lead and take it home. And get everybody thinking about Game 5, which is going to then be pivotal. Most likely the team that wins Game 5, if it's 2-2, will win the series. And I think if you're being realistic here, considering these two squads and the way the pitching sets up, the Mets need to win the next two games. Which is not an outlandish assignment. It's not like it can't be done. I would expect them to play very well, and I like the matchup for them tomorrow pitching-wise. I mean, I haven't been the biggest Quintana fan all year, but let's be honest, the numbers speak for themselves. What he's done lately. And he's the guy you want to have on the mound there. The matchups in the next two games are going to be exactly what they want. Exactly what they want. And it's interesting. All year, and I'll be fascinated by this, all year, the Mets have been managed superbly by, a quiet guy who has been completely in control, has done a superb job, and has reminded me a lot of Francona. I've made that comment a couple of times. That's who he reminds me of. And he has not been afraid to adjust his lineup, insert people. And I think right now, a little of that's necessary. I would make a couple of subtle adjustments here. I would make a couple of moves here. Because they have relied all year on being a team that everybody contributes. Well, let everybody have the opportunity to contribute. If somebody's not going well right now, well, you know what? It's not the end of the world to give them a day off. Or at least not start them the next day. Doesn't mean they won't contribute. Doesn't mean they won't see action. This team has been incredibly resilient, both in terms of the next day and in terms of the late innings. When it's been counted out, it's responded. When it's been behind, it's come back. It's had more comeback wins than anybody in baseball this year. And it has responded time after time. So there's no reason to think it won't tomorrow. And I would expect, despite the disappointment, and like I said, there's nothing worse than these nights, because when that game falls apart in the middle innings, the fans not only get unruly, they get distracted. And that's when it just gets to be a weird crowd. You get that. More so, I've always felt in the New York events than anywhere. Because there's so much intensity and energy that goes into the start of the game and the anticipation all day for this game. You know, wherever you go right now, everyone's talking about it. And that's what happens in October. Everybody's a baseball fan. Everybody jumps in. Everyone goes back to their roots, whether it's Yankee or Met or whatever it is, and they get aboard. And yeah, you get a lot of people at the ballpark who haven't been there all year, but that's, you know what, that is the way big events occur. It's just there are people who have the wherewithal financially to go to a game if they want to go to it, even if they haven't been there all year. And you can't get involved in it or worry about that stuff. Oh, yeah, it's a different crowd, and, you know, I want the people who've been there all year. Being a fan is not about a test. You're allowed to go if you haven't gone all year. There's no rules against that. Right, you're going to have your core people, the people who are there every day, the people who go, to 60 out of 80 games, that kind of thing, who have season tickets. Well, those are their seats. They go every day. It's their seats. They're there every day. That whole thing, I mean, that's the bottom line. But it's not about, hey, how many times did you go to the game, or any nonsense like that. There's no tests. You're in the building, you're in the building. That's all there is to it. But I would expect the same kind of intensity tomorrow. Now, should they be down 3-1, it's a whole different deal. That changes everything. But I would expect them to bounce back tomorrow. I really would. I still expect this to be a series that returns to Los Angeles. I figured this would be a long series, meaning 6 or 7 games all the way through. The delineation on a series being a long series is 6. 6 is the number. It's the magic number, to be honest with you. For networks, it makes a series profitable. You get to the 6th game, it's all gravy. 6th and 7th games are all gravy. So that's the mark, is getting to the 6th game of a series. If it goes 5, it's a short series. Obviously, the least it can go is 4, but if it goes 5, it's a short series. If it goes 6, it's a long series. If it goes 7, then you're thinking about it being a classic series. I think this is going back to LA. I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. I think there's a very good chance the Yankees may get plenty of rest and be able to set their pitching up. Then the Yankees will complain they have too much rest, but that's beside the point. I think they are in a position that they can take command. I think the problem right now is Cleveland, I felt overachieved all year, except for the ability of their bullpen, which is real. I felt they overachieved otherwise, and I think they're hitting a bad patch at the wrong time. They need to be exceedingly crisp and exceedingly clutch. They need Ramirez and Naylor to definitely carry the load, and they need guys to step up. And they have to catch the ball. And they have to do the little things. And they have to hope the Yankees make the mistakes that they've made all year. I mean, the Yankees, you can always count on them to make some big mistakes on the base paths. But the Yankee bullpen has been sensational. And obviously, they've been carried by some guys in the lineup led by Stanton and Soto. And now Judge, obviously, everyone hopes broke out last night. It just looked to me like he was getting himself really tied up and getting himself jammed a lot. And then he finally got a swing where he kind of extended. I mean, hey, it wasn't one of his memorable blasts, but it got out of the ballpark, which was, I'm sure, even though that wasn't a home run that they had to have, it was very important for him personally because it takes the pressure off. Now, Ramirez got one in the ninth inning that not only may take the pressure off him, but also may have allowed them to at least think psychologically that they started to solve Weaver. So we'll see if that one has any any residual value. It was just a fly ball that got a couple of rows deep, which is what a lot of Yankee Stadium home runs are, though. Again, at Yankee Stadium, there are going to be home runs of that ilk. Everybody has hit them, including Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle and everybody else. So there's nothing wrong with those home runs. They are part of that ballpark. So they are in, I feel, a very comfortable position. Did they get fortunate in the way things broke in the American League? Yes, sometimes you do. They're also right now getting contributions like Stanton. They're also getting a really good performance from the bullpen, Holmes and Weaver especially. Give Holmes a lot of credit for bouncing back here. And they are clearly better than their competition. And without any question, the survivor, and that's what it will be of this Met-Dodger series, will be a very formidable opponent. I don't think there's any question about that. That will be the toughest, by far the toughest series the Yankees will play this year in the postseason. I just don't think the Indians are going to come roaring back. Just, again, I'm not trying to disparage the Indians or disrespect them in any way. They had a very good season. I just don't think they're going to come roaring back and, tie the series up. I just don't think they are. I'd be very surprised if the series gets knotted. But as the Mets, I would expect them to bounce back tomorrow and shake off what was another tough night. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to get beat that way. And like I said, the Dodgers want to take your heart. They want to beat you. They want to pound you into the ground. They've had 3 of these games in the last week, and these are rare. Go back and look. You don't get many 8, 9, nothing shutouts in the postseason. Those are beatings. I mean, I can give you a series where a team presented a couple of those and still lost the series. Just go back to the series that Mickey Mantle mentioned many times in many interviews, including ones he did with us, that it's a series where he cried that it broke his heart, which was the Pirates in '60, where the Yankees, go look at the scores they won their games by, and then the scores they lost the games by and lost the series that they never should have lost. And we can get into, obviously, the strategy that Casey employed, which made no sense, but that's for another day. So you can lose sometimes even when you present these kinds of one-sided games inside the series. So I wouldn't lose even an iota of faith in the Mets after even the second one of these in 3 games. I would not do that. The Dodgers pitching, their overpowering prowess, their power, their pitching power. They strike out 13 Mets tonight. They hit a bunch of home runs. Power pitching, power hitting. It can be imposing, but it only presents one win. If the Mets beat them 3-2 tomorrow in 10, it's still 2-2. And that's the chore the Mets have tomorrow, is get right back on the horse, as they've done time and time again. We'll see you tomorrow.